Hey everybody, look what I got. I grew something. I grew something pretty next to my head.
About time.
Yeah, I know, right? It's the better looking half of me. So London, you wanted to come on the show for a second and say hi to everybody, right? Do you want to help us out with a word? My Uncle Mike's got a word.
Okay.
Come over this way, huh?
I see what happened. I knew that was going to happen.
What's that?
Started the show and it just rebroadcasts. Made a triple loop. Somebody's hearing it about now. Anyway, it's paused. Don't
Okay.
worry about it.
All right.
Better than that, I have a word for you.
Okay.
And it's okay. It's okay for London. Actually, London. Let's see if London can get it because you might know it. You might. This may be too easy for you. All right, London. You know what the word phony means, right?
No.
Phony. It's like fake,
Phony?
right? It's phony. Something's phony. It's fake. It's not real. No. Okay.
So now you know what the word phony means, right?
Yes.
Daddy.
Yes. It's fake, right? Okay.
And have you ever heard of the term kicking it? Like, hey, we're gonna kick it.
You're in hip hop class.
Oh yeah, duh.
Right.
Yeah. I know what it means.
So have you ever? I want you to see if you can figure out what it means if I were to say, phony kicking it.
What do you think? What do you think phony kicking it means?
Fake kicking?
Huh?
Fake kicking or something?
Well, like, you're kicking it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's phony kicking it. So what do you think? Like making it up? Like pretending you're kicking it?
Like making it up as you go?
Okay. All right, Mike, she says making it up as she goes.
I think she really kind of going as she goes, making it up right there.
Yeah.
However, I'm gonna say, all right, phony kicking it means that when you don't like someone, but you still hang out with them.
Oh, right.
Phony kicking it.
Like I do with you most weeks.
I was gonna say like maybe we do with somebody else.
No,
occasionally.
I know what you mean.
Phony kick it with me every week if that's your thing.
Right. Hey, Mike, I like the punishment, right?
Yeah.
All right, London, it's time for you to. Oh, I dropped something. It's time for you to head upstairs, but I want you to say the line. What do we do? What do
Start the show!
you? Yay! All right, everybody.
Bye.
Say goodnight to London. Good night. Good night, sweet princess. Sorry, princess. All right. See you later, pumpkin. You'll be all right. All right. From the tombs of long ago, using mice to do your dirty work, keeping your mom off limits. That's an inside thing between me and Luke there. It's time for the MythWits, the show dedicated to all things geek pop culture, drenched in absurdity and coated with sarcasm. Every week we bring you the news and interviews from the Geekoverse. Yes, we bite the heads off chickens, Luke. We do our damnedest to be funny, but there are no guarantees. I'm your host, Peter Bryant, and joining me this week is my co-host, Michael Capus. And joining us this week is Luke Crane. Luke was born to a dying people raised by monsters abandoned in the ruins of a once great civilization. Despite this, he managed to become an award-winning game designer and has designed excellent games like Burning Wheel, Mouseguard, and Torchbearer. Luke, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, gents.
Yeah.
I'm glad we finally managed to get this together.
Yeah. I've contacted you a couple times, but you are a busy fellow.
Holy cats! Like what? I don't even understand how busy I am sometimes. Oh my god! It just like, do you ever? I don't know if in your life you ever get to the point where you just can't make any more decisions, where like your bandwidth is just squelched down, and like that one final decision comes and it just won't go through the decision hole.
Yeah. Well, Mike and I were just having this discussion earlier this afternoon, this just a little while ago. I was like, Mike, I am so overwhelmed. I can't function. Like, I was like, we may even, well, I'm not going to say it on this show, but we were talking about cutting some corners in a couple places, and
We can't afford to cut corners in this show.
No. So I've got to.
In this show, we're going to be a sphere.
We're gonna right exactly. So what I got to do is I gotta retool. So yeah. So I bet you've had to do that several times where you sit down and you just go, what can I do to make all this work?
Yeah. Definitely had to learn some survival techniques. But I'm also like, I'm an idiot. Like, I have a very nice job, and I can't stop doing all the other things that I do. I never say no to anything. I just keep piling it all on, which is not smart.
No. So I got a good question for you. So I want to see if you and I fall in line on this same thing. So like, I allow myself pretty much one TV show a season. Like at a time. I watch one show. That's it. That's all I can watch because I don't have time for multiple shows.
Yeah. I mean, and like the idea of watching something like as it's airing or whatever, like that's a fantasy. Like, I get to watch TV when I'm on a plane or something. I mean, I tried to make time for Game of Thrones because it's become such like a cultural moment in our world that basically if I wasn't watching episodes roughly within the kind of the 2-week window, whatever, of an episode airing, then everything was just getting ruined for me. And people were walking up to me and saying things, and I'm just like, what the fuck?
Right. Don't say that. Right.
Yeah. So exactly. So that was my one. Yeah, my one show for that season. But yeah, I don't have time. I'm still playing catch up from like years ago.
Yeah. The only other thing I do, so I watch Game of Thrones and I like Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
So I've set aside Sunday nights. So I can watch TV Sunday night at 9:00 on, right? That's the one time I allow myself to watch TV. And like right now it's great because there's nothing on and I can just, I can like work without having to like stop to watch TV or whatever. The only other thing I do is sometimes a weekend will come around where I'll be like, I'm kind of burned out. My brain, like if I try to create something right now, it's not going to be any good anyway because my brain has just hit the wall. It's like sludge. And I'll like power watch something one night, like The Expanse. So like I started watching The Expanse and I crammed it in over a weekend. So it was just I was burned out for that weekend. So over 2 days I just power watched the whole series. And I did that with Stranger Things too, which people were talking about it. I was like, oh, let me just see what it's like. And next thing you know, I was like, oh my God, it's 2:00 in the morning. I got to go to work. I got to stop watching this show. And I finished it off the next day. So it's like, yeah, I just jam in whatever it is.
Yeah. Most of the time I don't really have that luxury. Like, but recently I moved and, while I was packing, I ended up watching Man in the High Castle.
Okay.
And I watched. It's funny when I was packing, and then when I was unpacking and like shredding documents and doing all this stuff, I just was like, "Fuck it! I just need something to keep my brain awake while I was doing this."
Right. All right. Sidebar. How did you like Man in the High Castle?
So it's kind of. I hope you share this sentiment with me, but. It's kind of fucked up to sympathize with a Nazi, first of all, like in any way, shape, or form. Like, and the fact that dude was the best character on the show, I felt was a major deficiency of the show. I mean, but he was amazing. But what I actually felt the show was airless. Like, you could tell that they just shot it all at once, and like there's no room to breathe or whatever in the show where like they're maybe listening to what fans are thinking or like taking another look at the material and being like, actually let's dial this plot line back a little bit and bring this one up. Just like there's just so many times in that show where you're like, oh my God, we've done this 3 times already. And I'm like shredding documents like, come on, I'm even half paying attention. And like I've seen this 3 times.
Yeah, there were some things that were weird. I was like, all right, I hope this doesn't go on too long. Which the good thing is, nothing went on too long. Whether you were like, oh, I really like this plot line, or I can't stand this plot line. Oh, good, I'm glad it's over now. But I don't know if you agree with me on this or not. I think it was a wonderful show, all in all, the whole package. After you can take it all in and sort of consider it as a painting. Except for the last 40 seconds. Like, it's one of those things where the last 40 seconds, and
what the hell? Right.
Right. It's like you didn't have to do that. It's okay that it was just an alternate reality. You didn't have to somehow tie it back into reality, and that's my only real problem with it.
Well, it is Philip K. Dick, so
I know
the weird factor gets turned up a notch. But here, I'm sure you'll agree with me on this point, because you're a gentleman of taste and stature. That it was disappointing that they changed judo to aikido. It's just disappointing and unnecessary. Judo's clearly the superior art.
I love judo. Judo's, as a matter of fact, I'm thinking about taking that up with my daughter, because it's a good martial art for a woman to learn, because it doesn't rely heavily on strength. It's more about technique. Whereas like stuff like kung fu and taekwondo, they kind of can rely heavily on strength. So I think it'd be a good thing for my daughter to learn. Yeah,
it's really good at a young age too, because it's good for flexibility and balance. But one of my senseis was this very just unassuming woman. You just would not think that she was about to wreck your ass. And she would wreck you. And she went out and competed one weekend. It was just kind of a lark, but I guess she just got into like the warrior madness, and she blew through her first opponent, or maybe it was for the title, whatever, in one throw. Just like walked up to her and just which is unheard of.
Nice.
She was great. I really miss her, actually.
I need to get to a sidebar, but let's bring it back on track, Pete. I'm sorry.
That's all right. No, it's no problem. It's no problem. Hey, man, we just talking here. We just talking. So Luke, hold on. I'm gonna cue image one here. So you did a little game called Burning Wheel, and some people may have heard of this game. It's been around a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about Burning Wheel? And was that your first game that you've ever done?
Yeah, well, the first game I ever published.
Right.
Like everyone who makes role-playing games, I was sweaty in my basement.
Got 10 of them on the shelf.
Right, making games. I think the first role-playing game I ever made was called The Fantasy Experiment, I believe, and it was basically Shadowrun, and then Shadowrun came out, and I was like, and Shadowrun was, of course, when it came out, it was revelatory, right? There's no other games like it, and my game was terrible,
right?
So I started publishing Burning Wheel in what we now call the Classic Edition, 2002, November 2002. And then we did a revised edition in 2005, and then we did the Gold Edition, which is just the third edition, in 2011. And we just released the kind of compilation of like magic and materials and commentary and stuff and new life paths in a book called the Burning Wheel Codex.
Right.
We're fulfilling the Kickstarter now on time.
Nice. Good deal.
Good deal.
So Burning Wheel was your first game, but and is it still going on? Like, is it still running strong? Like, are you still like active? I know you said you have something coming out, but are you actively developing? Like, do you have plans? Like, I'm going to put out a book next year or whatever. Do you have more like future projects coming out for it?
Yes, it's a weird thing. It's a very deep and extensive game. It's also a first game, and it shows some of the kind of rough edges of a first design.
Right.
But it's good. It's playable, and we've refined a lot of those rough edges. Some of them, like, it's funny, as we've refined them, we've kind of sanded down to these like big rough chunks in the game that I love, and like I'm like, oh, this is a totally cool design, even if everybody else hates it.
Right.
But at that point, it's like, well, if I take this out, then it becomes a different game, and I'd rather just design other games.
Right.
So I have a trickle of material that'll come out for Burning Wheel, but yeah, most of my attention is focused on designing new stuff these days.
Right. And now that's not that's not just you, right? I mean, when you do your game design and development stuff, is it just you, or do you have other people that you collaborate with that help you get this done?
I am the founding member of an infamous cult known as the Burning Wheel Headquarters. You may have heard of us.
Yes.
So founded probably 97, 98. And the membership has shifted slightly over time. Well, that's not true. You can never escape, really, but the active membership perhaps has shifted. The inactive members are in my basement. But yeah, it's a small crew right now. It's my friend Tor who does all of our editing and whatnot. He's also my co-author on Torchbearer. Yeah, he's just basically my sounding board. There's my friend Dro, who has now moved. He used to just be the guy who would make fun of us and say weird shit and that we couldn't understand because he has this really thick accent. But now he's doing layout for us. Excuse me, he's done layout for a couple of Torchbearer things that we've done, and it's amazing. He's better than I am. So I'm excited to bring him into the fold. And then, I mean, Andy Action does our fulfillment, and it's funny that like we really consider like our fulfillment guy like a part of the inner circle and a part of what we do, because we would never get anywhere without him. Like
Sure, yeah. I mean, you know, I've got something in the works I've been working on, and I've been working with the TSR Games crew, the new TSR Games. And you know, I do their podcast. I'm part of their podcast. I run the podcast now. I'm the director of new media, as it were. But I also have some games that I've developed, and you know, I put together 2 games which I have up on what is it? Game Crafter. And you know, that's not really a place to sell games. It's like, it's great, you can make prototypes and stuff like that, but if you try and sell through them, you don't really make any money, which is fine. I mean, I'm busy right now, but I was like, you know what, I really would like to get these out there and get distribution and get, you know, actually do something with this property. So I talked to them and I was like, look, can you guys distribute? Can you just take over that portion for me? Because like, I'm busy creating and I can't do all the things. It's because when I'm doing the other things, I'm not doing this thing. You know?
It's crazy. I mean, I used to do all the fulfillment by hand, which was a really valuable experience. It taught me never to do that, really.
Right.
But and you know, then I contracted a fulfillment house in Ohio, which went fine for a couple of years until they stole $20,000 from me. Yeah, woohoo, good times. And then but that didn't sink us. It came close. It nearly did. And that's when I actually started working with Andy. That he had experience doing like band management and merch management for bands, and he was like, "Yeah, I can take on your stuff." And we've kind of grown to take over his life, which is good. But we also, this year, we hired a project manager for the first time.
Hey.
Shout out to Nathan Black for putting up with my shit constantly. So that's a new thing for us. Like somebody whose role it is basically to, you know, not be me and crack the whip.
Right. And you know where you use him, where you can use him most effectively. You know, you say you don't say no to things. What you start doing is when people ask you for stuff, you say, you got to talk to my project manager because he runs my schedule. And then he'll say no for you. Or if he says yes, he might say, all right, I'm going to say yes here, but that means you can't do this. And then you can go, no, I really want to do that thing. And then he can say, yeah, we're busy right now. I can't do it. He can be the bad guy.
Wow. Hot tip.
Yeah. You know,
Nathan, you hear that?
Let him be the bad guy because he's the one responsible for keeping you on schedule, right?
It's true.
Right. So, all right. So, and then you came out. Okay. So I thought this was kind of cool because I never heard of this before. I was doing my research and stuff, and I came across Burning Empires. I didn't realize that you also had a space version of Burning Wheel, which is cool. So just real quick, what I know it's based on a novel series.
Graphic novel series.
Okay.
It's based on. At the time, there were just 2 graphic novels by my friend Chris Moeller who did the first series for Dark Horse under a different name when it was floppies. It was actually called Shadow Empires, and then Lucas decided that they wanted that title and came to him and apparently made a very nice offer to take the title off of his hands.
Really?
Apparently they were really nice about the whole thing.
Damn, that's nice.
This was back in '94 though. So this was back before shit got real. So then they changed the name to Iron Empires, and that's what they're called now. I was just a huge fan. I was a really ridiculous fan of these books when they came out. So yeah, the first series with Dark Horse, second series with the Vertigo Helix title on DC, imprint rather. Anyway, I just love these books so much, and we were feeling really cocky in 2005 after we won some award for something for Burning Wheel, and that no one cared about except us. And so we were like, we had all this swagger, and they had just reprinted the trades for the Iron Empire stuff, and so they were kind of fresh in our minds. So I reached out to Chris, admitted to him that I was a fan, and that in fact I had written him like horrible fan mail back in like '97 or '98 or something, and he forgave me and looked at Burning Wheel. He was like, actually they were working on a D20 version of the game at the time, and I just straight up said, like, do you need any help with this? Like, we've done this other game and we love your stuff. And he said, do you want to just design a game?
Okay.
And I was like, yeah.
Nice.
So we designed probably the most difficult RPG to play that I've ever encountered, and I love hard games.
Have you ever Time Lords by any chance?
The Greg Porter Time Lords?
Yes, Mike, he knows it. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Your game was harder than Time Lords?
Oh yes. Well, it's different. It's a different level of difficulty. I mean, Greg Porter just loves to pour on the crunch.
Yes.
And the equations in those games. Far fewer equations in Burning Empires. But Burning Empires is asking you to make decisions at all these levels, like this kind of metagame level about the fate of your planet, and then kind of a strategic, like, how am I going to win this, like, conflict level, and then like a personal level, like, why are you betraying me? And it's asking you to make them like at the same time in rapid succession, and it's just exhausting. And the battle mechanics are great, but they're really complicated.
Right.
And that's the thing, it all works. Like, all the rules work, but man, like, the amount of decisions and how often you're making them, like, when I play that game, like, after I'm done, I'm just wrecked. I'm just exhausted. So, and honestly, like, I kind of see that game as a failed design because, we won an Origins Award for it and everything, great, but Chris ultimately didn't like it. He liked that we put it out. He liked that he got checks for it. He liked that we won an award for it, but he didn't take it home and bust it out and play it with his group. And so that's when I realized, like, to me, that's a failed design where my co-author, my collaborator, isn't into it. That means I ended up designing it for myself. And I feel like my responsibility as a designer in those circumstances is actually to evoke their material, right? Is to bring their stuff to the forefront and, make my stuff kind of fit in seamlessly with it. So it seems like it all clicks along.
Right.
And while I love Burning Empires for all of its madness, ultimately a failure, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, I was. So I have every RPG player I think has a game in their back pocket that they've been working on, and and I've had one that has gone through several revisions, several play test sessions where I like get it all done. I'm like, yeah, all right, and then I'll bring it out and we'll play test it, and I'm like, oh, that didn't work. It's like it's too complicated, or it's too this, or it's too that. And I was all ready to go with it a couple years ago, like 5 years ago. I was all ready. This is great. I'm almost done, blah, blah, blah. Took it to a convention. We started playing it. And while people were having fun with it, it was very hard to get people to understand what was going on at first. After a while, they caught on to it. And then the one thing that kind of sunk it for me was the guy was like, wow, I feel like I'm playing like a mech, as a biological mech, because like I had like area hits and you could break bones and people could bleed. It was really complicated. I was just like, that's not the feel I was going for. I didn't want people to feel like, you know, they were playing a machine.
Right.
I think it takes you out of being a character. So I was just like, oh shit, back to the drawing board. So then I started getting into all this podcasting and stuff like that, which set me back, which is where I'm now back to doing the revision, and, you know, eventually one of these days, you know, it's a lot of work. I mean,
It is. It's tough. It's hard work.
you know, it's the hardest fun you'll ever have, I think.
That's a good way of saying it. I mean, I tell people that who you know, like I'll give presentations on game design or whatever, and you know, kind of my shtick is that, you know, game design is a lie. It's because you think, oh, I'm making a game. Games are fun. This is going to be fun. No, it's the opposite of fun. In fact, you have to make things that really aren't fun and guess and hope that maybe someday in the future they're going to be fun.
Right.
It's it's hilarious, and let's just say I was fooled at a young age.
Yeah. I think everybody who plays role playing games on a regular basis, or you know, they there's this illusion that it just all came together, you know, like well, they did that. Look at that, they just put this book together. It's a game. I could do that. I could do that, right? And then you start doing it, and you're just like, oh shit. And here's the thing. It's like a trap, because at very first, it's easy. Because like you're starting to throw down ideas, and it starts to flow, and you get these things. You're like, oh yeah, and then we'll do this, and we got this, and yeah, this is great. It's all coming together, and then you hit the details, and it's just like, oh no, and the trap has got you. And now you're like, you're this deep into it, right? And you've just realized, oh shit, this is really hard, you know. And then you're like, do I get out? Do I stay? I put all this in? Do I, you know, what do I do?
Yep.
You know.
Yeah. Making that decision there, where you're, you know, when you're like, oh. Okay, like the worst is when you're like, oh, there's something good here, but it's going to take a lot of work.
Right.
Right. Like, do I get out now, or do I just give myself up for the next year?
Right. All right, so let's move on to, you did the next thing you did was Mouseguard, or that,
yeah,
well, maybe not be the exact next thing, but the next thing on my list was Mouseguard, which is really cool. I know there's a graphic novel of that as well. So how did that come about? I mean, did you go to them? Did they come to you? How did that facilitate?
Well, the original publisher of Mouseguard was a friend of mine who I knew from the kind of convention circuit, and he's also a gamer who's designing his own system. Mark Smiley from Archaea, who put out the Artesia game, which was based on the Fusion engine. So if any of you want to go into the Wayback Machine there.
Yeah.
But I wasn't a fan of Mouseguard to start. My friend Clinton Nixon brought the comics with him to a convention we were at, and he showed me. He's like, "This is fucking awesome!" And they have that in the first comic. There's the "It's not what you fight, but what you fight for," or whatever slogan. And I looked at that. I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. That's definitely kind of in line with our philosophy." But Clinton was really into it. And I was like, "Oh, hey, I know the publisher. Do you want me to introduce you? You know, if you want to do a game based on it?" And so I did, and it didn't work out for whatever reason. And they, I was at probably Comic-Con with them, with the publisher, and with David, my future co-author there.
Right.
And they said, well, yeah, that didn't, we tried and it didn't really work out, but David still wants to do a game, and would you be interested? And I said, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I would. And then, I mean, man, Mouseguard was so fun. Like, it really was my, like, Athena moment, where it, like, sprang from my cracked skull, like, fully formed. I mean, I just posted a picture on Twitter the other day of the outline. I found the original outline of Mouseguard, which I put up on a piece of butcher paper on my old bulletin board. And for some reason, that bulletin board has been kicking around. I guess since the move, it kind of got unearthed. I didn't even realize what it was. I was like pulling stuff off the bulletin board, and I looked at it. I was like, oh, this is the outline. So I took a picture of it, and it's interesting, like, how accurate it is, because a lot of that stuff changes. Like, I mean, a lot of our games, like lots of rearranging
Yeah.
and rewriting and whatnot. But Mouseguard really just kind of came out all in one go.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, because I think I've seen this picture. It looks like it's kind of like a circle in the middle, and it's got these tendrils coming off of it, and it's got like notes and stuff written in it. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean,
put on.
I didn't study it. That's what it looked like to me. It looked like like the sun and like tendrils coming off of it, notes.
I do all of my outlining as astrological charts.
Okay.
Yeah.
You and Nancy Reagan, right?
Yes. She's here right now with me.
Awesome. So the natural question came to me. Did you just want to do something new, or was it that the idea sprang forth? Because I mean, you already had a system. You had Burning Wheel as a system. Some designers would feel like they would just want to wrap that around their game engine that they've already created. They've already got working. Was there an impetus in particular that made you want to say, you know what, I want to do something new?
Yeah. I mean, we were once again feeling cocky. We were hot off of the success of Burning Empires. At that point, we felt Burning Empires was a huge success. It certainly made us the most money we had ever made at that time, and we won an Origins Award for it. So yeah, we were feeling all hot, and we wanted a challenge, and I think part of me knew that I needed to atone for the sins of Burning Empires. And so, we determined, like, okay, if we're going to do this, we're really going to submit ourselves to David's world. We're going to take our game engine, but we're really going to try to strip it down to the point where, we feel like it's, David's world is really kind of shining through. And, it was a compromise. Like, there's still some things in there that are very gamey, like the turn structure.
Mm-hmm.
But that was also, like, that was a conceit to the audience that we were looking for, right? We were looking for an audience that's not accustomed necessarily to playing role-playing games, but perhaps is accustomed to playing board games. So therefore, things like turns are not alien to them, or in fact, most people who play games. Right. They're just alien to weirdos like us who play RPGs. Right. So anyway, yeah, that was a conceit for the kind of player base we were looking for. But I feel like for that game, we really did hit the tone. Like I think our writing style that we managed to get, and the look and feel of the books, and then also like the depth of the mechanics, where they're simple, but they're a little different. And then once you start playing them, you realize they have some depth to them, and right. Like I feel like that actually is a good, like, really honors David's comics.
And just just in case people don't know, because I'm familiar with Mouseguard. I'm not like intimately familiar, but I am familiar with it. Mouseguard is what it sounds like. You're playing mice, right? In the world, so you fight things like, or you maybe not exactly fight, but your challenges are things like cats and weasels and birds and stuff like that. Yeah,
you're in the mouse territories, which has been revealed as like someplace in the woods in Michigan. Northern Michigan, and yeah, you're playing the Mouseguard, which are kind of like mice rangers that are protecting the mouse territories from predators and scavengers and things like that. Doing the research for the game, like, I actually went back. I didn't go back and read Redwall, or anything like that. I went and read flora and fauna guides for Michigan, right? I wanted to make sure that everything that was like, in that book was true to David's like experience, like growing up there. And so, yeah, I learned all sorts of things about, what it lives in Michigan. But the one thing that I took with me from that flora and fauna research is that everything eats mice.
Yeah.
Like, even like they found, like, a few months ago, they like had like one of those like woodland cams, like on like a deer salt lick or something, and they caught the deer eating like baby mice.
Oh yeah,
right? Right?
Yeah,
like,
people think I've actually, I know what you're talking about. People think that the deer are just vegetarians, but yeah, they'll eat mice. They'll eat all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, right.
Mice
so
is good eats, apparently.
Yeah, frogs, wolves eat mice, like everything eats mice. So, but that actually really gave me a great perspective on the game, that it is you against the world, right? Like you're at the bottom of the food chain, everything is out to get you. One thing goes wrong and it's a disaster. And that really helped me. And in fact, the image that it brought to mind was that old diagram of scale from the Chaosium Call of Cthulhu game, where it shows like humans and then all the Nyarlathotep and Cthulhu and everything. And I was like, yes, that's it. That Cthulhu is the moose and the human is the mice.
Right.
So we actually included a chart like that in the game to try to give that sense of scale.
That's awesome. And then okay, so there was also another game that came out which I thought was really, really cool. I actually saw a physical copy of this and somebody was explaining the rules to me and I was like, and I don't remember off the top of my head now, but I remember it being very ingenious. Was the Mouseguard Swords and Strongholds, of like the chess-like game?
Yeah.
That was pretty cool, man. It was kind of like it was simple, right? But at the same time complex. Like there's this neat complexity hidden behind the simple maneuvering that you initially learn.
Yeah. I designed my first board game. Super cool. David had included this game in the comics. The mice play it at the end of fall, and they play it in the June Alley Inn in the anthology books. And he came to me. I was actually out at his place a couple of years ago, and he said, so I have the prototype that I made of the game, so to be able to draw it from perspective. And so he pulled up this like beautiful like handmade prototype of the game. And he said, but I don't know what the rules are. He's like, I've come up with these rules here, but I don't know if they work. And he showed me showed me these rules, and I was like, I closed the book and I was like, never show anyone those rules again, David.
Hey Mike, that's like, did you make a board game? Did you? Because with your Mike is not a game designer, as it were.
It's hard. So David and I actually, the really cool thing about that game was that it took about a half an hour before David and I came up with the kind of the base of the new rule set, and then developed it from there. So we made this cool artifact for Mouseguard fans, but I'm a very demanding taskmaster. Like, it had to be a good game, right? It had to be a legit good game. And David agreed with me. So I would sit down and play that game anytime. Like, I feel like there's real strategy there. I feel like I'm still learning about it as I play it.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. It's like I said, deceptively complicated. Much like our buddy Matthias, who came out with this game called Rampaging Jotun. I don't know if you've heard of this, but that game is really simple, but god damn, it's complex at the same time. Like, it's really simple stuff, but then like there are these like hidden layers where you're just like, oh shit, man, this game's actually kind of hard. I mean, like it can be hard. Like if you're playing against somebody who's played it a lot, it's like you think it's easy, but they could really run the table on you. Using the rules properly.
That's super cool. I'll have to check it out. I definitely have seen it.
Yeah, it's pretty badass. All right, so I don't want to lose all the time that we have. Let's talk about Torchbearer real quick.
Sure.
So this is a third fantasy role playing game that you've come up with. So again, my thought would be, what was the impetus behind creating yet another fantasy system? And I've actually played this. Or I didn't play it, but I was when you came on Game School, you ran it for us.
Oh yeah.
And so I got to see it play. It's really cool. I like it. But I mean, what were you like? I gotta create another role playing game.
Well, I mean, I really like the Mouseguard system. We all did. Like, everyone at Briggle headquarters is really proud of the Mouseguard system. And so Tor, after we finished, Tor started noodling around with the sword and sorcery version of the rules, and it was something that I had held in the back of my mind too. I was like, wow, if we do a good job with this, maybe we can then take this and make it into kind of a more open fantasy setting. But yeah, Tor was a step ahead of me, and he would play it from time to time and noodle with it from time to time, and then a few years into it, maybe 2011 2010, 2011, I turned to him and I said, hey, why don't you show me your notes? And he showed me, and I said, this is great. Like, I think there's a lot of great stuff here. Let's go. Let's make this our next project. Let's ratchet this down. And, and then years of playtesting later, like friendship on the brink, we managed to get it out. And yeah, it's basically just like, we call it our love letter to old school fantasy. And we, it's a segment of old school fantasy. It's certainly not representative of all of it, but where we actually loved managing our rations and our torches and the turn tracker and everything in basic D&D. We thought that was cool. So we were we're sad that D&D essentially has moved on to a different style of play in its entirety. So we said, well, what if we make a game about that stuff? What if we make a game about what's in your backpack? And it turned out to be fun. It's weird. I can't believe it works.
It is. I mean, Mike, you weren't a big D&D player, right? But I think you would like Torchbearer. Torchbearer is fun. I mean, it's you have these like you set up like goals and stuff. So your characters, like when you make up your character, you think about what's this adventure, and you can get rewards and stuff based upon that. It's not like correct me if I'm wrong. Like I'm trying to remember, but it was basically like you don't get experience so much for like killing the monster unless the monster was your goal, right? I mean, that's pretty much how it works. Yeah,
that's part of it. In all of our games, like they're all based on these things called beliefs. In Torchbearer, we break it down. We're very explicit that you have a belief and a goal. But basically like what your character cares about, what you think your character cares about, and what you want to accomplish. Like those are the important things in the game. And then doing those things earn you these points, and you spend the points. In Torchbearer, you spend them to modify your die rolls, but also to level up. Like spending those points, like you don't hoard points, right? You want your character to do all the cool things. So you're role playing your character, you're making these cool decisions, you're earning these points, and then you're getting to jam them into these like sweet rolls to make your character an actual badass.
Right.
It's actually like that currency system of like hoarding points for advancement has always bugged me. We want our characters to be cool, so why not incentivize spending that stuff rather than sitting on a pile of it? Right.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Well, look. Hey, I wanna hit Kickstarter real quick before we have to wrap up. So you work for Kickstarter? And
I do.
What is it you do there? What is your role at the KS?
I am head of games at Kickstarter.
Wow. Okay. Well, you're on the right show, because we have a lot of people come on and talk about their, come on and promote their Kickstarters. A lot of them are friends of ours that come on. They've like Nick Palmer's coming on next week. He's got a Kickstarter coming out for a game, and we've had we've had tons of people on. But anyway, we had John Wick on for 7C.
Oh, nice.
You may remember that one. That
I
one was
do indeed.
That was fucking crazy. That one.
It was.
He did a fantastic job. But yeah, he came on like Mike, was it the day before it was about to launch?
I think so.
It was either that or like just a couple days before. We also had the Rifts, the Savage Worlds Rifts.
And Clint and Shane and them.
Yeah, and it was Sean Fadden.
Okay.
He was doing it. Yeah, he got the license for it. So I mean, I think Shane was involved somehow. I'm not really sure, but anyway, so we have a lot of people coming on with Kickstarter. So there are a lot of people watch our show about Kickstarter. So I thought this would be cool if I could ask you a couple questions about that. And then, especially from a gaming standpoint, maybe help some of these people along with what they're doing.
How do they make money? How can somebody make money with Kickstarter?
Oh God, Jesus, Mike, come on.
I'm just joking. I can't.
The first question I have, actually, this is sort of like this has nothing to do with people helping with their Kickstarter. I was wondering, do you have to go into an office? Like, do you work in an office, or are you able to work from home working for Kickstarter?
We have a really beautiful office in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, New York, whatever you call it. It's pretty ridiculous. So I'm very, very, very lucky to work in a place that's not like a cube farm or whatever.
Right. So is it nice? Is it like one of these these modern startup type businesses where the office is really cool and you got like a nice coffee machine and stuff? Is it got a rec room and all that kind of stuff?
They love their coffee, so there's a nice coffee machine. There's no rec room, nothing like that. We do, instead of a rec room, we have a library full of books.
Okay.
Which is rad. We play D&D in there.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, I run D&D for the staff in there. In fact, the Lords of Chaos and I are gonna play a game tomorrow night in there.
Cool. Now, do you find yourself backing many Kickstarters?
Yeah, I do. I think I'm up to 260.
Oh God. Okay. Because you get to see all the gaming ones that come through, right? So I imagine you're like, oh shit, I want to back. I don't want to back. Right?
Yeah, that only happens occasionally. I usually know exactly what I want to back, especially since I get to see them before they launch.
Right.
I'm like, oh, just waiting.
Right.
First.
Right. I've been first on a couple, only because they were on my show and I knew exactly when they were going to launch. So I was like, I was waiting. I'm like, I want to be the first. I was something about being the first to back one. I don't know what that is. It's I don't get it.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
All right. So the first question I have is, and this is a big one. I know this comes up all the time, and I think you would probably be the right person to answer this question. Do videos really help people? Like, I keep. You have to have a video, like you have to. But then I see Kickstarters that don't, and they're successful. So is it important? Does it help? Is it, what's the story with the video?
Does it help? It helps.
Okay.
Projects. No, I just pulled these numbers recently, and like I can't like say like it helps by this much. Mm-hmm. Or anything like that. It's actually a really hard number to parse because you'd have to have pretty much two projects exactly the same, one with a video and one without a video.
Exactly.
But we'd have to have multiples of that, obviously.
Right.
But from what we can tell, having a video does increase your chance of success. Projects with videos appear to be more successful.
Okay, because I know for a lot of people that's the hardest part. It's like I know how to edit video, so I'm okay at that. I can edit my own video and everything like that. But then again, I'm also not a filmmaker either. So like, yeah, I can edit the video, but generating the content, making an interesting video to bring people in. And I don't want to scare people off because what if my game is really awesome, but I'm a shitty filmer, or shitty like video maker. And then somebody sees my video and they're like, oh yeah, that video, it's probably not that good because the video was bad. So this game or whatever is probably bad. That I think that's kind of concerning for people. So you think that people should definitely take their time, maybe hire somebody to do their video or find somebody who's good and see if they can't work a deal or something?
I don't know. I mean, doesn't everybody have like a cousin or nephew or friend that's really into video production? Like, isn't that just a universal thing right now?
I don't think anybody does, no. But Pete, do you think the video we made compared to the other videos you've seen, and I'm sure that Luke hasn't had a chance to see it, most likely, but do you think ours was good?
I think ours was decent. Ours was pretty decent. It was a very two guys who are not like movie directors, made this video in their basement, but that
directorial credit before this.
Yeah. But that's for a sign language video. But I think no, I think it was a good video. I'm not knocking it. I think it was a decent video. But I mean, it definitely looks like it's a nice homemade video, right? So it's decent, nice. But at the same time, I mean that's what people got to expect, though. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're a guy making something, out of nothing. So.
Hey, I'm got this thing going on here, and like somebody we might know that would just sit in the lounge chair and make this video about whatever they're doing.
Yeah, I know. Okay, let's not go down that road.
Like, there's a certain language to Kickstarter videos that's like very kind of hokey and maybe even a little bespoke, and I think that's okay. I think like getting up there in front of the camera, being like, "Hey, I'm making a thing, and I'm sure excited about it. I hope you like it too." I think that's great. like I think that should be included in every Kickstarter video. I think getting too slick is, I don't know, it's not necessary. And like, yeah, don't go too far outside your skill set or certainly your budget range for making a video. Just like do something that's in your world and and live with it. I hate my Kickstarter videos now. Like I hate them when I'm making them. I hate them putting them up, and I certainly can't watch them, afterwards. But if you look at my last two projects is basically just a still image and some music. That's my video.
Oh, okay.
I commissioned my friend Matt from this band Rosetta in Philly, and he's great. And he just put together these like weird fucking metal ambient tracks for me.
Right. And I, there's things you can do. I mean, there's ways you can do this on the cheap. Like you can go to like what is it, Audio Blocks or whatever. Just look up royalty free music, right? And you can buy a soundtrack for like $15, and it's awesome. They sound great, and it's yours. You can use it. It's as long as you follow whatever guidelines they have, like just credit them or whatever. You can get a great soundtrack for your video, and it's doesn't going to cost you an arm and a leg. And you would. I mean, just editing video and stuff, makes a major difference when you put a very low volume soundtrack in the back of a video. It amps it up like 10 times better, because most people don't own like professional mics, so they're gonna get that noise, that hum and stuff, and this music will cover that up, and it helps paint whatever it is that you're trying to make or say.
Right.
So I think there's tools out there for people for that. But so what do you think people are getting, like when they do their Kickstarters? What is like the biggest thing that people get wrong? Like what do you see as the biggest misconception that people think that they have to do, or that they do, that is either kind of overplayed or just doesn't help them?
I mean, once you're up, like, it's not really up to you anymore. Once you're live, like, it's up to the people, the community. And I've seen plenty of projects that I thought would not fund, and I've seen plenty of projects fund where I said, no, wait, never. But and I'm just not. I'm not always right, and that's okay.
Right.
I mean, usually the biggest mistake I see is before you launch, and that's lack of preparation. And in tabletop games, you're kind of at this convergence of product design and game design and graphic design, right? You're at these in this design nexus, and so you have to present that in a very particular way, and it also has certain needs. Like you're going to make something out of it, whether it's a digital product or even a physical product. So preparing for that, like figuring out, like especially if you're doing something physical, like how big it's going to be, how much it's going to weigh, how much that costs to ship, how much that costs to ship internationally. Like it's so easy to just say like, okay, well, it's $12 to ship that medium flat rate box cross country. It'll be, I don't know, $24 to ship it to Europe. Wrong.
Right.
You're not only are you wrong, but you're just screwed yourself.
Right.
But I mean, so there's the logistical preparation, but there's also like community preparation. It's such a good time to design games right now. And so somebody who comes to me and says like, oh, well, I have this great idea for a game, and I've been working for it in my basement and working, on it for 3 months or 6 months or something, and now we're going to launch it. They're hurting themselves. Like, you need to get out there well ahead of your launch. Those 6 months, those 12 months need to be spent at shows, on Twitch, like, wherever like your audience is, and just demoing the game, showing them what you're doing, getting them excited about both, what you're making and who you are as a creator.
Right. And I think one of the things that slows people down for that, and it's something I think we're hearing it less now, but I know we used to hear it all the time. I've heard this from people. They'll say, well, I don't want to tell anybody about it because, I don't want somebody stealing my idea. And it's just like, nobody's stealing your idea, because anyone who's got the gumption to create something already has 50 of them. They already have 50 ideas they're never going to get to. I have 10 games in my head right now. If I see a great game that you're developing, I don't have time to steal your game. I am busy with my own stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, you already got a head start on me because you've already got your game. You've got the concept. It's like, don't sweat that. You've got to get it out there. You've got to get feedback. You know, you can't, like you said, you can't sit in a bubble.
That's what Pied Piper thought, and then Hooli just came in.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That is one of the shows that I watch, yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah. Surprisingly good.
Yeah. I was surprised because I had no idea what this thing was, and they did that thing where they attack it on the end of another great show, and I was like, it's only half an hour. Sure, I'll check it out. And, man, I got sucked in. We have a guy at work, Mike. Well, Luke, you watch the show. So we have a guy at work, and he's one of the electrician guys. Electrical engineer guys. And I was talking to one of the electrical engineer guys. I'm like, that dude, his name's Tim. It's like, that dude, Tim, he's big head, right? And my friend goes, fuck, right? That's all he can see now. Like, every time he talks to me, he's just like, fucking big head. He's like, I hate you, man. That's all I can see when I talk to this guy. Because the guy's like, yeah, sure, okay. Yeah, we could do that. Hilarious.
Well, I work in tech, right? Kickstarter is considered a tech company.
Right.
And let me tell you, there's moments on that show where I'm like, too real.
Which makes it funnier, right?
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead, Mike.
Luke, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Related to what you were saying about get out there, get your product out there and everything. I have a question, maybe this relating to like Kickstarter regulations and terms of service. Somebody, say, started putting their stuff out, going to shows, getting their product out there. People really want it. What if somebody starts, and let's say me, and I have this idea, I'm going to kickstart this in 6 months. I'm getting this out there like you suggested.
Mm-hmm.
Am I okay to take money from someone if they're throwing money at it, even if it's in a beta version or whatever? Can I still sell it to people like that, or will Kickstarter have a problem with that?
I have no problem with that. Why would I have a problem with that?
No, I'm just kidding. So okay, they don't have a problem with that. Okay.
No. Like it's not the Olympics where you have to be like an amateur athlete or anything, or you used to. I don't think that's true anymore. But no, if you're selling like a beta or an alpha version, a demo version, that's totally cool. Like if that's a way for you to get your audience interested and invested, and then especially if you're going to come to Kickstarter and say like, okay, well now we're going to launch the full version or a deluxe version or something like that. That's totally rad.
Yeah, but you can't kickstart something that's already in a production level, correct?
Well, I mean, if your game is on the shelves of Toys R Us and you come to me and you say like, hey Luke, we want to do another print run of the game, I might say like, wait, what? Like maybe not. But I mean, if your game if you were a game author from the 80s, you managed to get the rights back for a game that was published by Hasbro and Bradley or Parker Brothers or something like that, and you wanted to like do a run of that game on Kickstarter, I'd be totally into it.
Okay. All right. So are you the guy that kind of makes decisions on some of this stuff? Like when games get submitted, do you say, nah, we're not going to back that, we're not going to allow this in our system, or we are going to allow it in our system? This fits our mission statement.
There are really, really simple rules for Kickstarter that the games category is beholden to, dance category, theater category, they're all the same. And basically, like, you're making a creative project that fits into one of our categories. So in our case, it's games. Mm-hmm. And you're not selling guns or porn, and you're not like reselling something that already exists in the world, right? That you're not saying like, hey, here's some iPad cases that I bought off of Alibaba, and I would like to do a Kickstarter project for them to buy more. Like, right? So very, very simple rules. So I don't have to be involved in any of that. Like games is great. Like I reviewed over 10,000 game submissions during my time, in the review queue, and I got to see that 95% of all game submissions are totally cool. Like people who are like legitimately want to make a game, whether their project is good or either idea is good or anything like that, like doesn't matter, right? they want to make a game. They conform to these simple rules. Off they go.
Okay.
So every so often we'll get into like a philosophical discussion at the company about like, should this be on Kickstarter? But that's really rare. Super, super rare. Right. And that usually involves like a big group of us. It's not. I'm certainly not sitting in my command chair being like, no.
Right. So all right. So this is going to be a little bit difficult question, and answer it how you like. I'll just get on with it. So what are your just your surface level thoughts of people defaulting on Kickstarter and scam? Like there have been a few that have come out that have turned out, it seems like they were purposely scamming. I've noticed that Kickstarter has been, or the courts have been starting to look at these things more seriously and start taking repercussions on some of these people. So do you know of like, what is Kickstarter's thoughts on, like, are they, where am I going with what is the actual question here, Mike? What are your thoughts on dealing with that? Like, I'll tell you, I'm a big fan of the courts going after these people, because then that makes all the other people who do Kickstarters, and follow through, because I'm worried about the legitimacy of Kickstarter being threatened, because I think it's a great, I love it. I think it's the greatest platform for creatives ever. And, I'm get concerned when people say, oh yeah, I backed this thing and I got screwed on it. This sort of like, I think is helping keep it. Well, I'm getting an echo, Mike. I don't know. Anyway, I'll let you talk, Luke. Go ahead.
I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you mean.
Go ahead.
Am I echoing? Am I okay?
No. It's just me.
Great. Yeah, that's tough. It really stings when a project goes under like that, and I mean, not just for us, but for the backing community. I mean, I've definitely personally been involved in like some really painful conversations where trying to get a project back on track, and my focus is always in those conversations, like, how can we get the backers their rewards, projects. Projects that do fail to deliver are rare in the system, as far as we can tell. And most projects are just simply late. And even the ones that do fail to deliver, like they're not like 9 times out of 10 it's on a scam. It's like I get to see a lot of these things, and not through any private information, but just by calling through a lot of updates and like just being in tune with the community, and just realizing that a lot of this stuff is just like unforeseen circumstances, or somebody getting over their head, or like medical problems, or like, It's just like, you're as a creator, you're putting yourself out there to your backers, but as a backer, you're kind of getting involved in the creator's life. So it's tough, but most of our backers understand what they're in for, that they're not, it's not an investment, and they're not buying anything, right? You're pledging support for a project to, in hopes that this thing comes to life,
right? And
that, you get to be a part of it. Now, sometimes that means that you could be out some money, and that sucks. And I mean, I've been stung myself, but it's funny, like this guy, that one project, the guy was obviously it's like I even got suckered in. I was like, "Whoa, this is great! This is a great deal!" Right. And and I backed it. Like, this is going to be great. We're going to use this to prototype this game, and blah blah blah. And then a year later, he's just like, "I didn't realize how expensive this was going to be to do, and it's just not possible." And he's like, "I'll refund your money. I'll try. I've got a second job. Try to refund the money." And I put in a fair amount of money into the project, and I was like, "You know what, dude? Just don't worry about it. Keep it." I mean, that's a luxury that I have. Not everyone has that luxury, of course.
Right. Well, my feeling on that is if you're backing a Kickstarter, you should have that luxury, okay? Because, like you said, you're investing. So, when you're like a little miniature venture capitalist. You're giving somebody money to do this work. There is no guarantee that they're going to be able to do it. They could run into problems, like you said, medical issues. They could die. There could be unforeseen circumstances. Maybe they live in Louisiana right now, and their whole house got flooded and carried away.
Yeah.
So you have to understand. People have to understand that it's not a store. You're not just buying a product. You are investing, and and if you don't have the money to lose, you probably shouldn't be investing on Kickstarter. I don't know. That's my thinking.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. You get excited. You want to see this thing come to life. You back it. You're not thinking about these things. You're not like this is kind of one of the things that I argue also is that you want to give people the best information to make the best decision, and expecting them to make like a good, sound reasoned decision when they're really excited about this thing coming back or whatever being made. Like it's it's not reasonable.
Maybe that's why people get stung so bad, because they're so emotionally involved in it. They're like, "Yay, there's a thing!"
Yeah.
And I want to be part of this thing, and I can't wait for it because it's a piece of my childhood or whatever.
Yeah. Right. I mean, you get excited about something. You just want to be a part of it. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get bitten by the bug too.
So, hey, Mike, is there anybody in the chat room saying anything? Is there any?
Yes, I'm chatting with Craig Maloney. Sorry, you know how I can't see that far.
Right.
We were just chatting about the Olympics. I'm trying to get something that I'd be able to chime in with him, but we're having a little chat, and he was talking about the Olympics, and we're like, because he's behind on this, we've already moved on, but
right.
been able to write off a few projects too, and I was just going to ask him if he did anything. Actually, I'm going to ask him live, and then he can respond. Has he ever funded anything on Kickstarter as well? And I don't know, maybe Luke knows Craig. I don't know.
Hi, Craig.
So yeah, all right, cool. We'll give him a sec. We'll give a little delay to go get to him. So what was I gonna say? Oh, so like we were saying, you back Kickstarters and they don't come through, or they do come through and it's awesome. And you get that thing in your hand, and you're like, yes, this is the best. And you generally have to. So you generally pay a little bit extra for the item. So let's say it was a book that normally you'd buy in the store for $20. I generally expect that I'm going to pay a little more because if the person could sell it for just that amount, he wouldn't need any development money. So I mean, do you see that the same way? Like when people do a Kickstarter, is it usually cheaper or more expensive? I mean, I generally find it's a little more expensive, and I'm cool with that.
It depends on the creator. Sometimes it goes one way, sometimes the other. I mean, and I often encourage creators to acknowledge the reality of, especially in tabletop games, that their backers want to feel like they're getting a good value for their pledge.
Right.
And so, and that goes both ways. Sometimes that means shaving $5 off the retail. Sometimes that means adding $5 to the retail and just adding a ton more stuff that you're not going to get later down the line.
Right. They get stuff that you're it's like, well, this won't be in the stores. Being that you're backing it, you're going to get something that will not, no one else will have after this Kickstarter's through.
Right.
Right. That's cool. So here comes the $1 million question. You can answer it if you want to, or if it's the secret sauce. But how does one get noticed by Kickstarter? So I noticed that there's some that Kickstarter suggests. Is there anything you can do to help that process at all?
Yeah. Well, it's actually there's not a magic formula for it.
Okay. I don't think so.
No, and it's funny. I did a thing with some people at Apple once, and somebody asked them the same question, like, how do we get noticed, on the App Store? And their answer was exactly the same as my answer, which was hilarious to me. But basically, like, have a nice looking project, like, do your best, like, have a nice project image, have some nice rewards, like, maybe be a little clever somewhere in there. And certainly for us, don't, like, in tabletop, the tendency is to get very salesy and, like, with your shipping badges and your price discounts and stuff like that. Like, don't do that. And then, like, the final thing, like, which is true all over the world, is just have a good idea.
Right.
which is the hardest thing in the world.
Right, that's the hardest part, right? Just have a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm very forgiving. Like when I'm looking at the category, like I'm looking for a good effort. You know, I'm looking for something that's a little different, a little standout. You know, like if I see a repeat creator, somebody that's like, you know, been on the platform a bunch, who's, you know, maybe like their first project was just like, wah, you know, but their second project is like equally wah. Maybe I'm just like, that's cool. Like, you know, you're doing great, but you don't need love. Right. I mean, that's a weird thing to say. That's not true. Everybody needs love.
Right.
But it just like, I'm just always looking for that new thing, that like something unexpected, something that, you know, when you're browsing the games category, makes you stop and go, what's that? Oh, that's cool.
Right. That's cool. Awesome. And then I just want to say, you know, I backed a Kickstarter recently that I didn't even want. Like, I didn't care about the product itself. But the woman who did I'm not going to name the name because I don't want to, whatever. But anyway, so she had put an appeal out, and I just liked her message. Like, she was creating something that was a dream. Like, to her, it was a dream to do this project, right? And it was a role-playing game, and it just kind of hit me. Like I was just like, oh my God. And you know, all right,
I know what project you're talking about.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about? All right, so that just hit me. I don't even want the game. I backed a dream. I didn't back a game. You know what I mean? Yep. Like, she had a dream, and that's it. I fucking backed that, and I was happy to do it. You know, and I don't even know if I'll ever play it or anything. But that was cool.
Yeah, that's super cool, and I mean that's one of the benefits of the platform. I think that's one of the strong points is that you get the game or whatever, but you can also just be like, you know what, here you go. Like I believe in you. Go forth. I do that all the time.
Yeah, it's like, I love what you're doing. Just do it. Here's money. Go do it.
Yep.
Go do your thing.
Yep.
All right, so Craig was saying, and I think this speaks to what you were asking, Pete, as far as like successful Kickstarters is, like he has said, most of the projects have really kept him well informed and have successfully completed. And this kind of speaks to a question that I have for Luke, which is, have you noticed that more and more projects from the past year or two are really like, not like taking long to complete, but like they are really keeping you informed? Even like I have gotten things, and I've even gotten extra stuff that I didn't even realize that I was getting, because they just say, hey, you backed us and we're throwing some extra stuff in, and we are just keeping you, letting you know what's going on. And hey, we were picked, you know, like the updates. It's like, oh my God, this is like 3 years old. I backed this project. Right. I'd like to be informed, which I think is good. I just didn't know are you finding more and more successful ones are starting to do that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're all learning about the platform. We're all out in public learning about each other in a way. Like, creators are learning about what their backers want. Backers learning how creators work, and yeah, and you know, we're kind of learning some best practices, and it's great. Like, one of the best practices that we've learned is like, hey, talk to each other. You know, talk to each other when things are good. Talk to each other when things are bad, and you know, it kind of makes for a much smoother ride. And that's kind of filtering out into the whole community, you know, is kind of it's simply a best practice, which makes my job a lot easier.
Right. And I'm finding, I think, at least this is my experience, I've been noticing a lot more projects that are coming in on time now. And I don't know if that's people are learning like how to work this and talking to other people and communities, like Facebook communities are forming. You know, and you know, I've seen the advice like a million times. It's like, if you're gonna say, for example, for a game, if you're gonna put a game on Kickstarter, your game should be pretty much done. Like, it should be almost ready to go. Like, maybe you need money for some art and editing and layout and stuff, but the stuff that you can do that you didn't need money to do should be completely finished. And like you were saying, you should be playtesting it already. You should have like a year or two behind you in playtesting. But I am noticing that a lot more stuff is coming out on time.
Yeah. Well, again, like, we're all learning that it's hard to make this stuff, and it's certainly hard to be on time. So, like, you know, I definitely think like early days people are just, giving it their best guess, but also the landscape has completely changed. Like, in 2011, you didn't have a set of manufacturers to choose from that understood what Kickstarter is and would help you price out like all the contingencies for like, well, what happens if we raise this much money? What happens if we do this? Right? You didn't have that kind of level of support. And then on the digital side, you also didn't have publishers that were willing to, work with you and say like, okay, well, if you raise this much money on Kickstarter, we'll support you, with this much money, like, as part of a publishing agreement. And that kind of that level of like kind of communal industrial support there really helps kind of steady things out. And, so when the shocks do hit, they don't upturn the ship.
Right.
Yeah, it's really nice to see that the whole community, the whole ecosystem is maturing. It's, developers and creators are learning, to be more realistic and more honest about what it takes. Backers are, being, better about communicating their needs and what they want to see. And then like manufacturers and publishers and distributors are all also, moving in to support these creators and make sure that backers get their games.
Right. Yeah, and I'm seeing like, for example, and I'll wrap this up in just a second. I gotta go, but I've noticed that like Panda, Panda, the Chinese manufacturer,
Yep.
they have set up shop in the United States where you can talk to consultants now. And like before your project even begins, and they will assign, this is my understanding, they will assign you a consultant that will help you through the process of getting whatever it is you do manufactured and in a certain price point.
Yeah, I'm friends with the gentleman over at Panda, and I think it's amazing what they do. But also just like having had made games for a long time, like that's rare, right? And it's rare, like it's not that there weren't games manufacturers before 2009 or something. It's that the games manufacturers were locked into making big board games, for either European publishers or U.S. publishers, and they just did that, like the factory that makes Monopoly.
Right.
But now having a factory that has sourced all these different types of components and all these different manufacturing methods, so they can serve all of these small creators, and they understand how the creator, that they're going to have to work with the creator to kind of get them in shape to where they can raise the money to then move forward with the job. Like, this is like complete shift in like dealing with a factory before, where you'd have to go and speak their language and and understand everything and have the money ready to go. And it's really wonderful. Like it's definitely changed the way that we make games at Brindle headquarters, and I've certainly heard from many creators how it's changed the landscape for them.
That's awesome. All right, well, let's wrap this up. Mike, did you have anything else you wanted to say before I roll this up?
I do. I actually have one more question, and that is, Luke, if let's say I am a game designer, okay? That's a lot of, why should I go with Kickstarter as opposed to, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like there's Indiegogo, there's GoFundMe. What are some other ones, if any, for whatever reason? But like, what sets Kickstarter apart from the other places? Or, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple things. I think on one hand, there's the fact that Kickstarter is just not like any other company out there in this space, where we converted to a public benefit corporation. So our motive isn't profit. Our motive is actually to do good. And so when I look at a project, I don't have to be thinking like, oh, is this gonna meet some quota, or is this gonna make a ton of money? I can look at a project and say like, should this exist in the world? Like, can I support this in a meaningful way to get this out there? So I get to look at projects that are big, small, weird, mainstream, whatever, and deal with them all the same. And that's a fundamentally different viewpoint, than other platforms in the space. And then, on the other side, like, the community for games is very much aware of Kickstarter, very much a part of Kickstarter. They've adopted it as kind of part of their language and part of how they want to see games get made. And that's both in the digital space and in the tabletop space. And it's really remarkable. And I mean, that's all fuzzy and fun and everything, but I get to see the numbers, you know, I get to see how many people are backing games and how many games they back and everything. And I can tell you that, like, it's a very, very large, very enthusiastic group of people.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw this guy, I think his name's James Matthew. I think it's how you pronounce it. And he does a lot of stuff on Kickstarter. And he actually ran an experiment, Mike. He took 2 games that he released for crowdfunding at the same time, and they were very similar games. And he ran the exact same campaign for both of them, one on Indiegogo and one on Kickstarter. And he said he didn't do anything different. If he updated one, he updated the other. And if he, you know, the reward levels were all the same. It was like, he said it was as identical to make the 2 different products. And he said that the Kickstarter campaign raised over 2.5 times more than the Indiegogo.
Yep.
But I like what you said, Luke. That Kickstarter is in the business of bringing cool shit into the world, and doesn't focus on, you know, profit quotas and stuff like that. It's all about it really sounds like it's all about the creator. Yep.
I mean, it's so amazing. Like, I went to the founders, to my ultimate bosses, Yancey and Perry, and I was like, I don't know if you understand how huge it is that you've given me permission to look at something, you know, not from a money perspective, but from like the creative good perspective. Like, it's just like a massive shift. So, and it's super cool. So yeah, and I'm so lucky to be a part of it. I'm so happy to be where I am.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, let's wrap this up. I don't want to keep it too much longer, and our show does have a time limit. So you can find all of Luke's stuff at www.burningwheel.com. Luke tweeties at burning_Luke. Is there any other link you want to give out? Any other?
No, we post most of our news on burningwheel.com, and you can get to our store from there. TorchbearerRPG.com for the diehard Torchbearer fans.
Okay.
And if you're on G+, there are some really cool Torchbearer and Burning Wheel communities out there too, if you're into that. But you can't really link directly to them. You have to understand the mysterious ways of G+.
That one eludes me a little bit. But yeah, I have witnessed Luke run Burning Wheel at conventions, and it's pretty astounding. At least back in the days when you were at Icon doing it, that was pretty crazy.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god, those were good times.
That's where we met. I always tell this story because it was just impressive. You were running a game, and you had jumped up on the table, and you were just like, "What do you do?" And now, "What do you do?" And it was fucking intense, is what it was.
Yeah. That was maybe Poisonous Ambition or The Gift or something. I used to run these crazy huge like pseudo LARP games at Icon. Yeah, good times.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then I've also seen Torchbearer play. I didn't play it. I was producing for a game school,
right.
and you can go over to game school and check out how Torchbearer's played. If you have any ideas of whether you want to check that out or not, it's a great game. It's really cool. So that's all we got. So thanks, Luke, for joining us. And Mike, I'm going to run the closer.
You don't have to tell me that, but thank you. Thank you for letting.
Thanks for having me, gents.
All right, yeah, hang out for just a second, okay? All right. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, I didn't have it on the thing, Mike. Okay, you've just enjoyed another awesome episode of The MythWits. A special thanks goes out to Luke Crane. Make sure to check out all of his excellent games and at the links provided below, right down there. And if you're listening to the podcast, check it out. Check us out on SoundCloud for that. Join us for a live broadcast every week, Mondays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time to catch a full show. You can jump into the chat room like we had one guy, right, Mike? I think it's all we had this time. What's that?
Props, Craig.
Okay, if you miss our live show, you can always catch the encore episodes and the podcast version at our website, on iTunes, and on SoundCloud now. We are part of the TSR Podcast Network, and you can find us at MythWits.com, TSRPN.com. You can visit us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, like, follow, subscribe, all that stuff. Please give us a bunch of stars on iTunes. It's important. MythWits is Studio187.com production and is protected under a Creative Commons license. Share it and all that good stuff. Just don't try to bootleg it and make money with it. Make sure to check out Studio187.com for more cool stuff. Join our mailing list. And blah, 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 blah. Thanks for listening. Tell your friends. And Mike?